Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Naruto explaining, bringing you guys another Boruto 2 Blue Vortex discussion. Today, I want to talk to you guys about our favorite Otsutsuki boogeyman, Momoshiki, and why there needs to be a second look at why Momoshiki has another power that hasn't been openly confirmed to Boruto. But as I was going back and doing a reread of Boruto Part 1 for a video that I'm working on that should drop later this summer, I started noticing a pattern that was in our faces the entire time. So join me in today's newest Naruto Explain video, where we not only identify what I believe is the hidden power of Momoshiki that Boruto isn't aware of, but also why this is a power that is something that Kashin Koji is likely very wary of when dealing with Boruto in general. So we're going to start off with Momoshiki's possible shinjutsu and the fact that it might be a true enhanced version of 10 Directions. So based on what we've seen in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex and Boruto Naruto Next Generations, there is strong evidence, in my opinion, to suggest that Momoshiki possesses a second power that Boruto is unaware of, one that resembles or even surpasses Kashin Koji's newly revealed shinjutsu 10 Directions. Momoshiki has consistently demonstrated the ability to glimpse into the future, fragmented glimpses, but glimpses nonetheless. Most notably when he warned Boruto about the fate that his blue eyes would bring him. The blue eyes weren't Boruto's like a lot of fans thought for so many years, but instead they were Ada's eyes. However, his visions, they were fragmented, seemingly beyond his full control, and sometimes they could be misinterpreted due to having a lack of key context. For as much concrete stuff as Momoshiki had, a lot of it was circumstantial as well. In contrast, 10 Directions, it allows Kashin Koji to see multiple possible futures, retain knowledge of all of them, and he's making calculations accordingly. Kashin Koji can see all these possible outcomes. He doesn't know which one's going to occur, but because he has the knowledge, he is able to plan and adjust accordingly, but he still needs to know what is going on, hence why we see him operating with Ada to have her give him updates in real time. That way he can see which way things are playing out. This power, in my opinion, aligns almost perfectly with what Momoshiki has been displaying, but there is a key difference here. Momoshiki's Foresight, it might be tied to his Byakugan, and that might be a reason why when you look at Momoshiki, every time he's taken over Boruto's body, he's manifested a Byakugan, but he's never cut it on. But we'll touch on that in a moment. So when Momoshiki has made past predictions, most notably in the first arc, he was shown using his Byakugan, which suggests that this ability might not be a separate technique, but rather a high-level application of the Otsutsuki's inherent sensory and cognitive abilities, since shinjutsu are considered to be divine techniques. The original versions of what humans would later replicate very poorly as being ninjutsu. Momoshiki may possess an even purer version of 10 Directions, meaning that what Kashin Koji is using is merely a weaker or a more restricted form of what Momoshiki as a pure Otsutsuki can use. While Kashin Koji is someone who is using Shibai's DNA, Amato only gave them traces of the DNA when he transplanted the DNA to use for his ninja tech. It only makes sense that a pure Otsutsuki is able to use shinjutsu to its maximum efficiency. At the end of the day, Kashin Koji is a cyborg clone of Jiraiya. There are going to be limitations to it. This would make a lot of sense given that Momoshiki, as an evolved Otsutsuki who has eaten thousands of chakra fruits, should have a greater command of the shinjutsu, even if again it's not the exact same thing. While Kashin Koji using 10 Directions for future observation came to him because of Amato transplanting Shibai DNA into his ninja tech, Momoshiki's version, due to him being genetically Otsutsuki, may be a fundamental aspect of his existence, possibly an extension of his Byakugan's sight into fate itself. There are implications for Kashin Koji and ultimately the battle against Jura itself. So if Momoshiki is indeed in possession of a stronger or a truer version of 10 Directions, this poses a serious problem for Kashin Koji. Koji is currently using this Foresight ability to run through all these probabilities in order to steer Boruto towards a future where Jura is defeated and the world is not consumed by a chakra fruit harvest. However, if Momoshiki has a superior version of the ability or an off-branch version of the ability, then he may already know how the events will unfold better than Kashin Koji does. Say, for instance, he's only getting fragmented snapshots himself while he's been dormant inside of Boruto. He is still aware of everything that Kashin Koji has told Boruto. It's like having parts of a puzzle piece. You have half the pieces yourself, Kashin Koji provides the other half. Think of it like how Mangekyo's Sharingan powers, they work stronger when both eyes are in close proximity together. It's kind of the same thing here. Both of them have fragmented snapshots of the future. One has more pieces than Kashin Koji, the other one potentially has only fragmented spots, but when you put them all together, you get a monster here. So Kashin Koji's power allows him to navigate through those multiple possible futures by seeing them. But if Momoshiki has a potentially refined or clearer version of it, like he knew with absolute certainty that Edo was going to use omnipotence, then if this is the case, if Momoshiki has a more refined version, he may already be aware of Koji's attempts to manipulate events and might even be working against them in a subtle way. Momoshiki could also be withholding information from Boruto, and that be the reason why he has not made himself known since the failed takeover of Boruto's body during the code fight. If Momoshiki is seeing futures he does not want Boruto to know about, he may be selectively keeping him in the dark to push his own agenda. That's why he did all that gaslighting in part 1, especially when omnipotence was running its course and about to run its course. He was trying to drive Boruto into an emotional wreckage that way be easier to take over. He's being silent for a reason. Momoshiki has been encouraged by Momoshiki being able to see Boruto's exile, knowing that at some point this is going to lead to a moment where Boruto does break and he can fully exert control over Boruto's body and shape his choices. It's just a matter of waiting. And waiting for someone like him who has all this information, that's going to be extremely dangerous. Now, the other thing you have to look at here is there's more foreshadowing. So Kashin Koji talks about how Boruto can't necessarily tell people about all these possible futures because if that happens, it will make everything he saw with 10 Directions absolutely useless. This could mean that Kashin Koji's calculated timeline, it could be completely unstable. Kashin Koji's trying to push forward a Boruto timeline on a singular path of victory, but if Momoshiki's true version or altered version of 10 Directions allows him to adjust fate beyond what Koji can perceive, then Koji may be playing into a scenario that Momoshiki's already foreseen and accounted for. Because as we saw, Momoshiki could see what was happening once omnipotence happened, but due to certain things being outside of his control, namely Sarada, things like Sarada helping Mitsuki hunt down Boruto, that didn't happen. Things like Kawaki being in a situation where he's got blood on his face and he's standing over what appears to be a defeated Boruto, that didn't happen as well. The future was changed, much like how Kashin Koji told Boruto that the future itself is never set in stone. Momoshiki, for this reason, could be hiding something even deeper beyond 10 Directions itself. So if 10 Directions is something that Kashin Koji awakened due to what we saw with the shinjutsu being transplanted into him, the Otsutsuki God's DNA, it stands to reason that another ancient Otsutsuki like Momoshiki should have other hidden abilities, even if it's not 10 Directions. Possibly the power to do more than just observe what we see with these possible futures. Possibly a power that works in a similar way when it comes to observing possible futures. This would make him an even bigger wild card because as we've seen in the Naruto franchise, people who have prep time, people who have information, they are the most dangerous. Now this gets even deeper when you look at the Buddhist symbolism. So Momoshiki and Kashin Koji, they in a way are two sides of the same coin, two sides of the same foresight. So in Buddhism, it has deep connections to the concept of foresight and fate. They are central themes in Boruto. Kashin Koji and Momoshiki represent opposite ends of this. So the concept of 10 Directions itself is inspired by Buddhist cosmology which describes 10 directions as north, south, east, west, and the 4 intermediate directions above and below as being an encompassing of all existence. That's why he sees all these multiple timelines. Kashin Koji represents wisdom aspect of foresight, using his knowledge of multiple futures to provide Boruto a guide to push him towards the best possible outcome. His power mirrors the Buddhist idea of an enlightened being who seeks to steer others onto the right path based on their karmic actions. Momoshiki, on the other hand, he represents the attachment of fate. His version of foresight, it is deterministic, binding him to a future that he believes that is set in stone. That's why he was so shocked when things didn't happen the way that he saw everything happen post-omnipotence. Unlike Kashin Koji, who sees possible futures and sees the futures as mere possibilities, Momoshiki, if you look at how he's spoken all throughout Boruto Part 1, when speaking to Boruto, when speaking about Boruto's future, it was always in absolutes. And as longtime viewers of the channel heard me say numerous times, what's the one thing that I say pay attention to? The language that characters use. This is a very important thing. Koji talks in a open-ended way when talking about possible futures. Momoshiki has always been absolute. The only time that Koji's been 100% absolute has been when it comes to Boruto fighting Jura. Momoshiki, on the other hand, he believes that the future, it is fixed. This ties into the Buddhist teachings of suffering. The greater that one clings onto fate, the more that they endure in terms of suffering. Their contrast, it suggests that Momoshiki's foresight might be a cursed version of 10 directions, where instead of using it to navigate choice, he is bound by what he sees because of his own pride. That's why what we're seeing are potentially 2 different versions of the same jutsu. This could also explain why he never saw his own death. His own vision of fate is incomplete when applied to himself, which that makes sense. If Momoshiki is able to use the information that Kashin Koji has, along with his own power, it is something that when combined allows you to unlock something that is simply beyond seeing the future. It's the ability to actively change it. Kashin Koji is already trying to do that with Boruto. It only makes sense that you escalate things further and you have Momoshiki do it possibly as well. This would represent an even greater danger, as he could begin to challenge the natural course of fate itself. Momoshiki and the Momotaro folktale, the peach and the hidden power, is the next thing we have to look at. So Momoshiki's name, as you likely have heard me say 100 times, is based off the Japanese folktale, the story of Momotaro the Peach Boy. In that story, Momotaro was born of a peach and he grew up fighting demons and gathering allies along the way. The folklore, it is deeply symbolic, with power hidden within an unassuming vessel. Just as the peach contained a miraculous child, Momoshiki is inside of a vessel right now in Boruto. So it only makes sense that just as that peach had a unassuming child that nobody knew about, a miraculous child, miracles are often associated with divinity. Shinjutsu, depending on the translation, could be called divine jutsu. It only makes sense that Momoshiki, someone who has knowledge of all Shinjutsu, might also contain other latent abilities that have not been fully explored here yet. In the context of Boruto, Momoshiki parallels Momotaro in that inverted way that we talked about before. So in the folktale, Momotaro, he gathers 3 allies, a dog, a monkey, and a peasant, in order to help him fight demons. In Boruto, Momoshiki is the demon himself, and he's clinging to Boruto, unable to let go of life, as he says to Boruto, "You are my precious vessel, I won't let you die." Whereas Boruto is slowly gathering his own allies post-omnipotence. Sarada, Sumire, Kashin Koji, potentially. You could have Mitsuki join the fray as well. He's trying to oppose a fate that Momoshiki has foreseen. He's trying to oppose a fate that Kashin Koji has foreseen. Additionally, in some versions of Momotaro, the peach also grants supernatural power and longevity. This could be a reference to both Momoshiki. When he first comes to Earth, what's he doing? He's seeking these chakra pills for longevity. This is also a mirror of how Momoshiki's continued survival relies on staying attached to Boruto's soul. However, if we extend the symbolism even further, Momoshiki himself might still have an untapped divine power, much like how Momotaro's peach had a hidden potential. If Momoshiki truly possesses a second power, it could be a superior ability to see fragmented parts of the future. When combined with what Kashin Koji is seeing, this could lead to him altering the future. Again, it's just based off of knowledge. It could also be a technique related to consuming life force, paralleling how peaches in Japanese mythology tend to grant immortality. It could also be a final hidden shinjutsu that's not been revealed, stored inside a Boruto like a seed waiting to blossom, much like how in the folktale, Momotaro was a seed inside of the peach that eventually came out. In conclusion, Momoshiki's hidden power and the coming conflict, it's right there in our faces in my opinion. If Momoshiki indeed has a true or evolved version or a fragmented version of 10 directions, then Kashin Koji's attempts to manipulate fate for the better, they are at risk of being outmaneuvered. Momoshiki has been silent. He has already demonstrated knowledge when it comes to the future, but if he has a greater ability, then it is possible that he has been allowing events to unfold silently as they have, because he's waiting for that perfect moment to take control and alter the future as he sees fit. This would make Momoshiki the biggest wild card in Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, and I do believe that Kashin Koji has foreseen something regarding this, because Boruto was not telling Kawaki to kill him if things got out of hand for no reason. He may know something about Jura, Ada, or even Boruto himself that no one else knows, something that he has not even told Boruto in full. If this power goes beyond simply seeing fate and it allows him to rewrite fate, because again, Momoshiki has knowledge of all shinjutsu, doesn't necessarily mean that he can perform all shinjutsu. But if we already have something that can rewrite reality in the form of omnipotence, there could also be something else there that just requires certain conditions. This could be Boruto's greatest threat or his most unlikely ally, depending on what future ultimately unfolds. Obviously, if you enjoyed this video, consider subscribing and checking out this Naruto Explained video over here on the left, or click here above to check out this blind review from my One Piece channel, where I review One Piece chapter by chapter from chapter 1 in a blind way where I've had absolutely no spoilers given to me, or click over here on the right for this video for my Anime Explained channel where I talk about non-Naruto content.